mathematicians. You want to say hi?
Hi.
What are we doing in today's video, ladies?
We're reviewing Module 4.
What's happening soon?
With the test.
The what?
End of the module test.
What?
Oh, COL.
She means a celebration of learning. We are wrapping up, no thank you. We are wrapping up our Module 4. It's been 33 lessons, so it's about time. And our sweet mathematicians are going to do some problems that look very similar to what you're going to see on the celebration of learning. So let's take a look. Also tonight, please remember you have to do your packet. Watch this video and also complete the problems in your packet. So let's take a look. This is number 2, clearly, in our review. Someone has adjusted my pencil sharpness. I don't like when my pencil is not sharp. Stand by. Okay. Multiply or divide using any method. Use any method. I'm going to show you or remind you the method that we learned when we are dividing numbers that have decimals in them. So we can rename them in unit form. 1.5 is 1.5 is 15 tenths, and 34 is 34 ones. Remember doing this unit form? So what you would do here, friends, is just multiply your double digits, and then your final answer, you'll have to consider tenths and ones. Well, what is tenths times 1? Tenths times ones is going to be tenths. So that'll be our final unit, because ultimately what we're doing here, friends, is we're making 34 copies of 15 tenths. So our final answer is going to be in tenths. Keep in mind, though, I'm going to need you to transfer that unit form into standard form, which is just the number. So let's look at 4 times 5, which is 20. And then let's look at 4 times 1, which is 4 plus 2 is 6. Second row, we're multiplying this 3 in, but it's not a 3, it's a 30. So do not forget that. That is so crucial here. Make sure that 0 ends up when you're multiplying, ends up right here when you're multiplying your 30 into your 5. 3 times 5 is 15. Again, that's not a 3, it's a 30. So we have our 0, our 5, and we're going to carry the 1. I crossed out the 2 because we already used it. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. So now what we need to do is just add up these partial products. 0 plus 0 is 0. 6 plus 5 is 11, and 5. So our final number here is 510 tenths, friends. 510 tenths is 51. For this problem, we'll use the same strategy. We're going to rename 1.5 as 15 tenths. And then 33 is going to be renamed as, 33 hundredths is going to be rewritten, I should say, in unit form as 33 hundredths. So we'll multiply these numbers through, and then we'll consider our units. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. 0, because this is a 30. 3 times 5 again is 15. Carry our 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Add up our partial products. We have 5, we have 9, we have 4. Now we have to think about what is our unit. Well, it's tenths times hundredths. Tenths times hundredths. Well, we know 10 times 100 is 1,000. Tenths times hundredths is thousandths. Thousandths. Teeny tiny. What does that look like in standard form? Let's think about it on the place value chart. Boop, 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 boop. We have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 4, 9, 5. Oops, I said 5, but I wrote a 4. 495 thousandths is going to look like this in standard form. feel free to use these amazing place value charts to support your learning. Let's take a look. I wanted to go over this one because it's so important that we check in with our logic, and this problem gives us a perfect opportunity to do so. So here it says on the blank, and I know we're skipping around, so just sort of keep track on what number we're looking at. On the blank, write a division expression that matches the situation. Okay, so here in our first situation, we have Carly and Ramil share 7 yards of ribbon equally. How much ribbon will each get? So let's just think about this. What are they sharing? Well, this is actually not about Carly and Ramil. This is okay and Kira. 2 friends in our class, they are sharing. Before you just write mindlessly an expression, think about what's going on here. So we have 7 yards of ribbon. That's a lot of ribbon. Wonder what they're going to do with that ribbon. 7 yards of ribbon. How is it being shared? Well, it's being shared equally. How is it being, like, what do you mean equally? Well, we have 2 friends that are sharing it. So it's 7 yards of ribbon being shared across 2 people. So 7 divided by how many people? 2 people. Cool? So it's just 7 divided by 1, 2. We have 7 yards of ribbon. This friend is getting this part, and then that friend, this sweet friend, is getting this part. Well, do not share the friends with the ribbon. This is not a cannibal, well, this is not a human eating ribbon that wants to eat the friends. Do not share the friends with the ribbon. We are sharing the ribbon, 7 yards of ribbon, with 2 friends. Don't make this weird. Okay, let's look at the second one. It takes half of a yard of ribbon to make a bow. How many bows can be made with 7 yards of ribbon? Okay, so again, let's think about it. What are we sharing here? Well, we are sharing, what are we sharing? Cantaloupes? Burritos? No, we're still sharing ribbon. 7 yards of ribbon. There's my ribbon. How are we sharing it this time? Well, now we have to be really precise. So it takes half of a yard of ribbon. Okay, so I'm just going to break off a little model here. It takes half of a yard of ribbon to make a bow. So I really want to draw this out so that this is meaningful for me, so that I feel super confident when I'm putting my expression that it makes sense. Okay, so it takes a half a yard of ribbon to make a bow. How many bows can be made with 7 yards of ribbon? Okay, so a half of a yard to make a bow. How many bows can I get out of this 7 yards? Well, let's think about how many halves live inside of 7 in order to do that. And nowhere does it say that I have to draw anything, but this really supports my reasoning. I love to draw it out to visually feel super confident that my expression is the best, is the perfect expression to support the situation. Okay, so we have 7 yards here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, that is not 7. Now it is. So 7 yards, as everyone knows, 7 is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 individual units. I need to figure out how many halves live inside of 7. Ultimately, we are cutting each of our single units in half. Watch me go. There she goes. It's happening. That makes perfect sense because I need 1/2 of a yard to make a bow. So I need 1 of these to make a bow. Okay, that's great. What is the question asking though? How many bows can be made with 7 yards of ribbon? And you know, we don't even need to answer the question. We need the expression. So the expression here looks like we're still sharing 7 yards, just like we were up here, but we're not sharing it with 2 friends. And this one, we're looking at how many halves fit inside of 7. So our expression for this one, friends, is 7 divided by 1/2. There are so many big old word problems in your review. Well, not so many. There are some big old word problems in your review, and we worked on some big old word problems, hashtag Lucia, in class today. And word problems are tricky. They are impossible if you don't make sense of them. Think about Lucia and her beads. Watch it happen. Watch her hanging that beaded string in the window and look at the fact that there's 4/10 separated by each bead, or 6/10. Don't just go in and blindly start calculating. That's not what Lucia would want, is it? Please draw a picture. Please make sense of the problem before you just start like a zombie writing out an expression or doing some zombie-like calculation. Can you promise me that, please? Otherwise, I'm going to force you to do some sort of Lucia craft project, and then we'll all be sorry. Cool. I'm going to hand this over to my guest mathematicians. Enjoy. Don't forget to do your whole packet. We'll go over.
Okay, guys, so we're going to be doing the review video today. And before we start, we're just going to review some like vocabulary because it's been a little while. So we're going to make a chart. You guys don't have to draw this. And some of you might remember, we have this in our math notebooks. So adding the vocabulary, we have sum, and we have add. And when we are subtracting, some vocabulary we have is different. So I'll just put diff. And less than.
I just need to have, for some reason, I have to take these to Jeff Johnson. For some reason,
and then multiplying, we have product, we have multiply, times, and this is one of the newer ones, which is of, because that of comes up a lot. Lastly, when we are dividing, we have quotient, we have divisor, we have dividend, and share equally. So if you don't have this in your math book, maybe you should write this down because this will be very helpful on the test. And so you can just pause for a second and look this over because we're going to be looking at some of the problems with the expressions where we have to rewrite them. And yeah. Okay, guys, so we are going to be doing review, as I said before. So, we used to be doing this a little while ago. That's why I did the vocabulary before this. So, this is very important. We just have to do the expression. We don't have to solve it. So, our first one is 1/2 the sum of 1/2 and 1/3. So, we know 1/2. And then the 1/2 the sum. So then we have 1/2 the sum of 1/2 and 1/3. So of right here, as we said before, is times. So we're going to do 1/2 the sum of 1/2 and 1/3. So sum is add. So then we're going to do parentheses, and we're going to do 1/2 plus 1/3. So that's the first one. So now let's take a look at B. So let me just do a check there. Let's get a different color. Okay. So we have 2 and 1/3 times the sum of 9 and 12. So we have 2 and 1/3. You can write that because you know it's going to be first. So we have 2 and 1/3, and then times right here 1/3, 2 and 1/3, sorry, times, so let's times, and then we have the sum, which is add, of 9 and 12. So then we have, in parentheses, 9 plus 12. Okay, so we finished that one. So now let's do C. So we have 12 divided by the difference between 1 and 1/2 and 3/4. So just because this one has a little more complicated numbers like this doesn't mean it's a harder problem to do. So we have 12 divided by, so we, oh no, that, can't really see that. Oh. Oops, okay. So, why does this keep coming up? Okay, so we have 12 divided by, and then let's look what we have next. The difference between 1 and 1/2 and 3/4. So we know the difference is subtract. So we're going to, in parentheses, because it's like a second problem, and we're going to have 1 and 1/2, because we have it right here. And 12, so we have 12 divided by 1/2. The difference, which we said right here, is minus. So we're going to subtract, and then we have 3/4. And we're just going to finish it off with our parentheses.
Today we will be doing the review, and yeah, so let's get started. So what you're gonna do is do 1 times 1 equals 1, and then make a line, and then 3 times 5 is 15. So that would basically be your answer. So Erica's gonna come in and do the secret word.
So guys, before you leave, you're probably wondering what the secret word is. Here it is.
Oh, please.
I know it's kind of long, but just remember.
Being divided.
And
I know, but in the review, do you see anything involving?
yeah, bye guys.
Bye.